Hello, my name is Gino, and I'm going to be your CA for this segment of ChemBuddy dealing with matter. To begin, we need to understand what we are talking about. So what is matter? Matter is defined as anything that has mass and takes up space, or has volume. So matter is everything you see around you. Your couch, your computer, your iPad, your grilled cheese sandwich, all are matter. And matter has important properties and undergoes important changes that we will look at in this episode. The first thing we need to look at when talking about matter are intensive and extensive properties. All matter has these, and they are defined as such. Extensive properties depend on the amount of matter present when observed. Some examples are mass, volume, and length. These all change based on how much matter we have. On the other hand, intensive properties are independent of the amount of matter present when observed. They are the same regardless of how much matter you have. A great example of this is color. Color never changes if you have the same substance, regardless of how much of the substance you have. Now, differing these two types of properties can be tricky, and there are three important properties you need to keep straight and remember which category they fall in. These are all intensive properties, and they are boiling point, melting point, and density. These properties, even though you think may change as your amount of matter changes, do not. An example would be melting butter to make a recipe. No matter if you are melting one or several sticks of butter, you have the same melting point. We can also classify properties by if they are physical or chemical too. Physical properties are characteristics or conditions that can be observed or measured without altering the composition of a substance. This means the substance you work with does not change. Examples of this are mass, volume, and density. You can measure these and not change what substance you are working with. If you are taking all these measurements for water, for example, you still have water when you're finished with your measurements. Chemical properties are characteristics only observed by changing the chemical composition of substances. Examples of these are reactivity and the ability to combust. You are measuring here if a reaction will occur, in the process changing a substance's composition. A specific example is measuring if C2H4 is able to combust. If you measure this, you will see it does, and what you are left with after this measurement will be different than what you started with, in this case producing carbon dioxide and water from C2H4. Again, boiling point and melting point are tricky properties to classify because you may be thinking they are not physical because you are measuring going from solid to liquid or liquid to gas. However, boiling and melting are physical changes that only alter matter's state, not its chemical composition. Water is still water, even if it is solid, liquid, or gas. This brings us to an important point, the difference between changes in matter. There are two types of change in matter, physical and chemical. Let's start with looking at physical changes. A physical change is that which occurs without altering the composition or identity of a substance. Examples of this are changes in shape, cutting, or grinding. But more importantly, physical changes include changes of state and dissolving. These may look like they are changing their composition, but they are really staying the same. We've already showed how changes in state are physical changes, so let's look at dissolving. Let's use table salt, NaCl, for an example. When you dissolve something in water, the water particles pull apart the substance so it can become part of a solution. However, the NaCl particles are still NaCl, even if they now are in water. It's also important to remember when looking at physical changes that there are three states of matter. And I know some of you will be saying, what about plasma? For our purposes, we do not care or touch upon this fourth state of matter. The states of matter are also called phases of matter, and their three types are solid, liquid, and gas. Solids have definite shape and volume, liquids have indefinite shape and definite volume, and gases have both indefinite shape and volume. And if you hear the word vapor, it refers to the gaseous state of a substance that is typically a liquid or solid at room temperature. Physical changes can also be classified as reversible or irreversible, which means exactly what you think. Reversible being you can go back to what you had before, and irreversible being where you cannot go back to what you had before. An example of reversible change is a change of state. You can always go from solid to liquid and then back from liquid to solid. You can melt something and then freeze it again. A good example of irreversible changes are cutting hair or filing nails. You can't just go back from what you've done. You can't put hair back from where you've cut it. You can't revert the change. It's permanent now. Now let's talk about chemical changes. A chemical change is that which occurs and alters the chemical composition of a substance. In English, a chemical change converts one substance into a new substance with new properties. Great examples of this are rusting and burning. You are left with things that are really different than what you started with before the change. There are 4 indicators of a chemical change. 1. A transfer of energy. As a result of this, heat is given off which you can feel, especially if you observe a reaction in a test tube. This is also seen when metals glow when they combust. 2. An unexpected color change. This is seen when you mix 2 colorless solutions and get some random bright color. 3. A gas is given off. Remember, this does not include boiling, which is a physical change. This indicator talks about things like an Alka-Seltzer tablet in water, a fizzing or bubbling that occurs. 4. A solid is formed, namely an insoluble solid called a precipitate. This solid will not dissolve and is produced when 2 solutions are put together and a solid falls out of this combined mixture. An important note, this is not the same as exceeding solubility, adding so much stuff to a solution that eventually some solid will be left over. And that is everything you need to know about matter's properties, changes, and states. Thank you for watching this video and choosing ChemBuddy as your teaching assistant, and please come back and watch more of what our channel has to offer. For my fellow CAs, Chris and Emil, we wish you the best in studying, and hope you enjoyed this video.